Hey everybody, it's Angela and I'm back with another process video. And this layout is of a seed cleaner that my husband and I purchased. It's an old one, but it is still perfectly usable. And it has very much a steampunk look about it, with all these gears and belts and levers and all kinds of stuff. And we don't even exactly know how to use it, but we're going to try to use it for cleaning our grain. We got our wheat harvested and everything went really well. We're really pleased. And then now we're going to try to clean it. And so I have this picture. I printed it out at an 8.5 by 11 and then just trimmed it out. And I debated whether or not to put two more smaller photos on there, but it was just a little bit too cluttery for what I had in mind, because I want to make it a little more steampunk and kind of play that up. Because to me, it looked like a time machine. And so I was like telling my husband, like when this thing finally starts going, we're going to find ourselves in another era or something. We're going to be transported back in time. And it just looked like some kind of crazy steampunk time machine. So that is what I'm going to play up on this. And all the papers I'm using are from Crate Paper. And I don't know which collection it is. They didn't really have a name on it, but it was one of those hot deals they had at Michael's one time. And so I have these gears that I got from Saw Crafters, and so I want to use those. And then I also have some of her chipboard chain as well, so I'm kind of looking at that. I have these other chipboard pieces that I kind of play with, but I don't wind up using them on this layout. So I'm going back and forth as to where I'm going to use that chain, if I'm going to actually use the pieces to overlay the photo or just to decorate next to the photo. And eventually I do decide to just kind of put my decorations next to the photo and not over the top, so that you can still see the actual machine. And I don't know when this was made, maybe, I don't know, like the 20s or 30s. I haven't looked it up. It's an A.T. Farrell machine and made in Michigan. And so I'm just doing some layers here. I wanted to pull out some of the red. The machine actually has most of the things on it are painted red. Like the metal pieces and stuff like that. They're just kind of all dirty and greasy here. I actually spent like 4 or 5 hours cleaning this machine and cleaning it out, because whoever used it last to clean beans had left a whole bunch of garbage inside, and there was like a mouse nest in there and just all kinds of crap. And so it took me a while to get it cleaned out. And you can see here I had printed on the back. Luckily, this is like a double-sided paper. And I had printed on the back 2 4x6 photos, and then I changed my mind on what I wanted to do. So I just flipped the paper over and did my 8.5 by 11 picture on the other side, so that I wouldn't waste the paper. I'm only out some of the ink, which is, isn't cheap either. So I just put that up on foam tape. It's not very thick foam tape, just enough to give it a little bit of lift up off the page. And so I'm going to go ahead and place that. And we did turn it on. We haven't cleaned any seed with it, but after I got it cleaned out, we turned that thing on. It makes a wonderful sound because it's mostly made of wood instead of metal, so it has a really mellow sound, and it kind of chugs along, and it has an electric motor on it, really old motor. But yeah, it's a really cool machine. I just worry about I'll have to make sure to tie my hair up and not have loose clothing or anything, because all those gears and belts and stuff are exposed. So I kind of figure out how I want that. And so I just take my black Heidi Swapp ink. I'm going to use that to color all the gears and stuff black. And I didn't want to get out my paint and stuff for this. The ink covers really well on this MDF, so it's a lot faster just to do it this way. So I'm just kind of holding it with my paper piercer so I don't get too much ink on my fingers, although I do wind up getting black fingers by the end of this layout. But so there's all kinds of different sizes of gears. It's actually a very generous size package of gears, and so I've just pulled out some of them. And then I didn't show the package of chain, but I forget how many lengths of chain are in one chipboard sheet. So that the chain is chipboard, but the gears are MDF. So I just go ahead and I kind of make sure that ink's dry. And then I bring my layout back in and start doing them. And so I just kind of nestle them up next to the photo. And I'm kind of going on a diagonal from the upper right to the bottom left. And I like that black paper in the background because it kind of says travel, I don't know, like travel assignment or something like that. And the little tag has some travel themed things on it. So for a time machine, the kind of travel theme worked out really well for me. And the wood grain paper in the background is actually cut down a little bit because that was a thinner, because it was one of those Michaels paper pads. The cardstock isn't really very heavy, so I wind up, wanting to back it on some cardstock anyway. So I'm kind of liking this and how it's coming together, but I want a few more layers and stuff in there. And I don't like how the paper is showing up through all those gear holes. It just makes it look a little bit too busy. So I'm going to back each of the gears with just some of this blue paper that matches the tag. So I just go ahead and cut those out. And I can't wait to get our seed all cleaned. I did hand clean some of it. And the next day after we harvested the wheat, we made some pancakes using the wheat out of the field because we couldn't wait. And so as soon as I get a bunch of it cleaned, then I can, start making bread with it and stuff. And then we'll use the rest of the seed as our seed for replanting next year. We'll take out all the big healthy grains, or the best grains, when we clean them. We'll kind of size them and keep the best ones for our replanting next year, because we plan to do about hopefully about 30 acres next year. We're not sure yet. So I can't wait to start cooking and baking with it. That's always a lot of fun. And so there's the rest of my gears, and that just keeps the red and all the paper divisions and stuff like that from showing up between the gears and just making it too cluttered looking. So now I'm trying to figure out how I want to incorporate that chain, and I'm still kind of undecided on that. But I do like the gears, so I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. And I put a little bit of dot adhesive on there, and then just to hold it while the glue adhesive dries. And then this one, because it's on top of the other gear, I put a few little pop dots on one edge. And then I'm going to put glue on the rest of it where it overlaps. And then I have that third one, and I'm just going to overlap it on the largest gear. So I'm liking how that looks. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the top. Yeah, we don't even know on this machine how all the chutes and things work. We just keep, turning levers and stuff and seeing what happens to try to figure out how to use it. We've looked on YouTube, and I've seen a few people, but they don't go quite through all the settings, or they might not have exactly the same model as this. So we'll have some fun figuring it out. One of our friends who is helping us with this was afraid that once we turned it on, we'd all wind up with like Amish beards or something. I don't know what era we're supposed to go back to when we turn this thing on, but yeah. So I'm looking at these tags, seeing how I should overlap it, because I thought I was going to put my title all just in the upper left, but I actually wind up putting it down there on the bottom right. So at this point, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with those two open corners. But I go through all my thickers and I find this one. I really like it. I can't read the font off the package, but it's the one here that has the little triangles on it, and it just had kind of a funky, I don't know, kind of a Western, kind of a more modern feel to it. It's kind of hard to describe, but I really liked it for this. I liked that it was thin and it would fit well on here. So I'm thinking now of putting the word time at the top and machine at the bottom. But the time just doesn't really fit. It doesn't have very good readability just up there by itself. So I think about putting it on this tag, but then that's too bulky. So I cut the tag down, and that just looks too contrived. And yeah, so then I'm thinking, well, I'll put both the words at the bottom, or I'll overlap them, but putting those two together at the bottom was just too big. So I think about putting the word, making time in a different font, and then just having the word machine there. But I still just wasn't liking that either. So I go ahead and I put them toward the bottom. And then it didn't quite fit, so then I move them all down onto the kind of black paper. It's kind of a charcoal colored paper in the background. So I like that. It fits better there. It's still readable. And I decide to go ahead and put some chain underneath it just to kind of underline the title. And then I'm going to put the word time in a smaller font, because using those thickers for both time and machine was just too big. So I'm liking that. And now I'm looking, I have these two other little leftover pieces of chain, so I'm trying to figure out how I could use them. And you can see how undecided I'm, like tapping my fingers and I don't know what I'm doing. So I pull out these alpha stickers, and these are some Studio 112s from like the dollar bins at Joann's. And so I got a couple packs of these because they're just, you know, they're kind of timeless. So I just put the word time using that font. And I know the layout needs more. It's just not feeling right, especially that corner where I'm trying to other things. It just, I don't know, there was like that empty space of that corner kind of floating out there, the corner of the machine. And then I think, well, time machine, maybe I should use clock somewhere, but I'm not sure about that. I like that little chipboard or wood veneer piece there with the little gauge or whatever on it. So I think of putting that there, and I actually glue it down, but then I pull it up here later because it's just not fitting in with the rest. I decide to go instead with this paper from Die Cuts with a View at Home collection and go with the clock theme, because time, machine, clocks just seem to work. So I have this one sheet. I'm just fussy cutting some clocks out of it. I couldn't find any other clocks, and you know I've got other clocks in my collection. It's just that I spent a little bit of time searching, but this was what I found. I remembered the clocks in this collection, so I didn't keep digging. But I haven't used clocks all that much lately. It was really big there for a while. So you can see I pulled off that one gauge I glued down because I decided to use these clock hands instead, and these are ones from Saw Crafters, and they're MDF clock hands. So I have a punch. You can see what that's on is just a piece of paper because I didn't want to put another thick piece of MDF there. So I just used my punch for those, I think they're called iTop, the little badge makers. And if you have that, you'll know what I'm talking about. But essentially it gives you kind of that asterisk look, and it kind of looked like a gear, and it would keep it from getting too thick. So I painted or inked 2 of the clock hands black, and I just with my wire cutters clipped off the round part of one of the clock hands because I didn't want to overlap them and make them too tall. So I just clipped it off, and I'll just kind of butt them up together. And you can't really see it here very well with black on black, but you can see it in person. And I do wind up putting a little bit of gold, this stuff that's similar to Rub and Buff, just to delineate them a little bit. And you'll see it in the close-ups. So I go ahead and I glue the clock hands down. And there's plenty of clock hands in that package. It's very generous as well. So I'll have some to use for quite a while. I also fussy cut some more of those clocks out of that paper. I put one of them on a pop dot right in the middle of that gear on the bottom left. And then I've tucked a couple other ones around. And there's still a hole in the middle of that clock hand. So I go ahead and put just an enamel dot in that. And then I sprinkle a few more enamel dots around. I put that another little piece of chain underneath that tag on the right. And I punch the hole in that tag because it started bothering me. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But today it started bothering me, so I went ahead and punched it out. And now I'm looking for a piece of cardstock to mat it on. I didn't like the red, and it was just too bright. So I went looking in my stash and found kind of a black charcoal color. I know on this video they kind of look almost navy, but it is charcoal. And so I think this is the end of what I do. I play around with putting some corners. Those 2 corners of the paper were still bothering me, but that just made it look too busy. And I've tried sticking some clocks under there, but that kind of messed up my diagonal flow. I try looking at some tags. And I like the little sentiment on this tag, so I go ahead and cut it out, and I think about including that somewhere. It says like 1,000 little moments. And I play around with it, and I do the close-ups here. You can see the gears on top, and you'll see I do include that sentiment at the very end, and I put it up on top my gears that are on the bottom left. So here's kind of a close-up. You can see the gears overlapping, some of the enamel dots, some of the clocks that I stuck have a little bit of glitter on them. Then I've got my chain, thickers there, and then some more gears backed, and there you can see the clock hands really well. And so I really love how it turned out. Kind of plays up that steampunky theme and kind of documents this new piece of machinery we've added to our farm. So that is my completed layout. And if you have any questions, please just feel free to leave me a comment below. And thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.